everyone, my name is Kayla Roach. Welcome to my channel. This video is going to be all about skinks. I am lucky enough to work with two different species of skinks, emerald tree skinks and oscillated skinks. Not to pick favorites, but emerald tree skinks are one of my favorite lizards. I know they're also a fan favorite, and for that reason, I'm going to save best for last. Let's talk about oscillated skinks. Oscillated skinks are small, semi-fossorial lizards native to the Mediterranean coast. They are quite widespread in their range, and for that reason, they tend to be habitat generalists, and they adapt very well in a variety of environments, but they typically prefer arid, sandy, and stony habitats. They are insectivorous, which means that they primarily, if not solely, feed on invertebrates. And they're named after the eye-like pattern all over their scales. Although I think their name is quite suitable, I refer to them as oscillated sausages because they have ridiculously long cylindrical bodies with tiny stubby legs. Tell me they don't look like walking sausages. Tell me, you're wrong. Something that's quite unique about them is that they are a viviparous species, meaning that they give birth to live young and are one of the very few reptiles who actually have placentas to nurture their young. In my opinion, they are a super underrated reptile. Pet keepers tend to strive for animals like these emerald tree skinks who are handleable and colorful. And unfortunately for oscillated skinks, they're not the best for handling, and they're also not the most brilliantly colored. I think they're criminally underrated, and I hope to be a voice for them in the hobby because they need more attention. Now that I'm talking about them, I realized I have not ever introduced my oscillated skinks on my YouTube page. I've posted about them plenty of times on my Instagram, so if you don't want to miss out on anything fun, I guess you should go follow me on Instagram at kaylas.critters. Shameless plug. But I've been keeping a pair of oscillated skinks for about 2 years now. This will tie into my first update and word of good news, and that is that my pair of oscillated skinks have successfully reproduced under my care. To this date, I've had 2 litters. Remember, they do not lay eggs, so they're not referred to as clutches, they are referred to as litters. And the female is currently gravid as we speak, so more babies on the way. The babies are ridiculously adorable and small. The type of cuteness and petite size that make you just wanna, I can't be the only one. Cuteness aggression is a thing, and I just look at them and I just want to pop them in my mouth and see what happens. Don't worry, I'm not talking about you. Go on my head, go on my cranium. There we go. In light of this family of oscillated skinks I now have under my care, I have given them all an enclosure upgrade where I keep them in a colony as a family unit, which many keepers who work with oscillated skinks are known to do. In fact, this enclosure right here is the oscillated skink habitat I'm talking about. I used an Exoterra glass terrarium for this build, used a blend of topsoil play sand and Exoterra stone desert as the substrate. And then I just went nuts with decorating using faux rock decor, real rocks, a variety of wood, fake plants, real dried plants, and much more. This enclosure offers them plenty of places to hide and plenty of nooks and crannies where only the babies can fit in, but not the parents. That way they can have their own unique places to hide and bask that the parents can't access. Keep in mind, they're also semi-fossorial, so they spend a lot of time under the substrate, often poking their heads out to indulge in some cryptic basking. Then of course I have appropriate lighting. I have a halogen bulb to produce heat in a basking area. I have UVB and I have an LED light to illuminate the entire enclosure. That sums it up for the oscillated skinks. Now we are going to move on to some of my favorite lizards, the fan favorites, the emerald tree skinks. Emerald tree skinks are arboreal lizards native to Southeast Asia, where they inhabit humid tropical forests. They are primarily insectivorous, however, they have been documented eating fruit and even flowers. And in captivity, they will eat fruit diets like Pangea or Repashy to supplement their diet. Unlike the ocellated skinks, emerald tree skinks are oviparous, which means that they reproduce by laying eggs. And they typically lay 1 to 2 eggs at a time. Speaking of eggs, my 3 emerald tree skinks that I've had for a few years now have finally reproduced under my care. To date, my female has laid 2 clutches of eggs, giving me 3 babies in total.
Oh my God. Another baby. That one there is from the first clutch, and so is the other one right here. And that little one is a new hatchling. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, there's babies everywhere. Look how tiny.
And the coolest part of it all, they reproduced, laid eggs, and the eggs hatched all on their own within the vivarium. In fact, many emerald tree skink keepers breed them this way. They keep a colony together and then babies pop up out of nowhere. But typically, the babies will be removed and placed in a separate enclosure. I decided to let my babies stay with the parents in the vivarium for a few months to document any type of social or parental behavior between the parents and their offspring. Of course, I work from home. I'm here every day, all day, and I check on my animals all the time. I have a watchful eye on them, so if anything went wrong, I can immediately intervene. But I'm happy to say that their cohabitation was a success. And I documented some very interesting behaviors between the adult skinks and the babies. I'd like to make it clear that these observations are purely anecdotal and based on my personal experience. They are not definitive, they are not conclusive. It is simply valuable data that you can take into consideration. The first and most immediate behavior I noticed was the babies riding on the backs of the parents. Good old skink stack. This might be a parental behavior, or maybe the babies just find it more convenient to ride on the back of a parent. They don't need to expend as much energy, or they can get higher to the basking point. I don't know what it means, but it's interesting. By far, the most interesting behavior I have observed is during feeding time. Normally, when I feed the adults, it gets pretty chaotic. When one skink has an insect in its mouth, another skink will try to steal it, and they'll either pull it apart and bug guts will go everywhere, or they'll just play a little round of tag or keep away and run around the enclosure frantically, trying to keep their precious catch away from the other skinks. That's always how they've behaved together. But what I noticed is with the babies, the adults were a lot more forgiving and lenient and even seemed to share their prey item with the babies. When an adult would catch a cricket per se, I've witnessed babies coming to the adult and biting at the cricket, often pulling legs off and eating them. And the adult skink would not run away like they usually do. It appeared as though the adult was feeding or sharing its prey item with the offspring. Again, purely anecdotal. This is simply my interpretation of what I saw, but it is fascinating nonetheless. After a few months of keeping the babies with the adults, I decided it was probably time to separate them before the enclosure became overcrowded. So it was time to build a baby enclosure. An enclosure solely dedicated to the tiny green beans. Tarantula Cribs sent me one of their acrylic enclosures. This is the extra large 12 by 12 by 18 treehouse switch enclosure. While Tarantula Cribs is mainly marketed towards invertebrate keepers, their enclosures are great for small reptiles, like baby tree skinks in this instance. This enclosure even has a removable top. You can switch the lid for an acrylic one or a screen top depending on what your animal's needs are. You can also switch the color of the background, making this enclosure highly customizable. In my case, I wanted the emerald tree skinks to have more usable space in the enclosure since they can't stick to hard surfaces, so I used a cork background that they can climb on. I included a drainage layer, a drainage barrier, a complex soil blend with topsoil, sphagnum moss, fir bark, charcoal, cork, and leaf litter, scattered some pieces of cork around the enclosure and small branches, planted a Ficus benjamina, just like I did in the adult enclosure since it's a plant native to Southeast Asia, along with the philodendron on the forest floor, a little feeding ledge, and their enclosure was done, all thanks to tarantula cribs. They immediately made themselves at home in their enclosure. And last but not least, I got a brand new emerald tree skink. I currently have 2 adult males and 1 adult female. So in my mind, it seemed like if I got another adult female, I could have 2 reproductive pairs. And that's where this beautiful skink comes into play.
Oh my goodness. There she is. Look at her. She's so pretty. Oh my God. If I could hug you, I would, but I can't. Here she is, my new female emerald tree skink. She's the same locality as the ones I already have. She's a 2-year-old captive bred female, so she will fit in perfectly with my plans. She has beautiful coloration, and she also recently laid an infertile egg, which the seller was kind enough to give to me, which is a great sign. This shows that she is ready to breed and she is sexually mature. And it also tells me that she's healthy. Her body condition is perfect. You can tell she was very well loved and cared for. And I can't wait to add her to my skink squad back at home. We're home. Oh, she's beautiful. There she is. Hi, pretty. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed all the updates on my beautiful skinks. Let me know in the comments, do you prefer the oscillated skinks or the emerald tree skinks? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. This is where you jump. This is where you jump. She climbed on top of my head in my very fluffy humidity hair. Just like her natural environment. Tropical jungle. Right on my head, baby.